A show of support that almost left a family lost for words.
Absolutely humbling, entirely overwhelming.
More than 700 people packed a marquee on the Maitland Blacks' home ground, Marcellin Oval, to help 27-year-old hooker Dominic Punch. He was left with serious injuries to his C5 and C6 vertebrae after a second-grade grand final scrum last month.
We've been in Sydney for most of the period there with Dominic, obviously, and a bit removed from what's been going on in Maitland, and absolutely just amazed and flabbergasted with the support that's been pointed in his direction, and with the best wishes and positive thoughts and love that's been aimed at Dom.
It's still a long road to recovery, but he now has movement in his shoulders, arms and wrists.
His spirits are remarkable. Yeah, so he's facing things day by day, and yeah, we're sort of, in many ways, we're strengthened by the way that he's been able to face this huge event in his life.
Among those lending a hand today, local rugby players and the wider community, as well as ex-Wallaby turned author Peter Fitzsimons and former Test cricketer Mike Hussey.
That is very, very encouraging. I think it speaks volumes for the guy that was Dom, because Dom was known not just within the rugby community, but he's loved and respected by the greater community as well.
In a Facebook post, Dom said, "I wish I could be there. It's overwhelming and humbling to receive so much love and attention." Funds raised will go towards his ongoing medical treatment. To donate, head to the Dom Punch Appeal Facebook page. Georgina Smythe, NBN News.
Research has established that once you remove graffiti from an area, and maybe you have to do it 2 or 3 more times, then the taggers tend to go somewhere else because they realize that we're serious and we want to keep the place clean.
Fundraisers don't come any tastier than this. And while the food proved a hit with the crowd, the real aim of the luncheon was raising money for OzHarvest.
Every dollar that we raise today will go to feed 2 people less fortunate than ourselves a meal, and a meal served with dignity. All of the wine, all of the food, every single thing that you see here today has been donated. It's an absolute zero cost event.
The National Food Rescue Operation set up its Hunter arm 5 years ago, and in that time it's collected more than 1 million kilos of good but unused food from local businesses, turning it into 3 million meals for those in need. Local health insurance giant NIB was one of the first to get involved.
We obviously have shown our support from an NIB perspective, and absolutely we encourage others. And I think, the people that are here today are certainly testament to the fact that a lot of businesses have jumped on board.
Making the fundraiser even more special, the food was whipped up by top chefs who donated their time and skills.
Essentially, today is a great experience for us to give back to the people that are less privileged, and it's a fantastic cause.
Meredith Gibbs, NBN News.
Birigitti's injury conjured up tough memories for the Jets. In 2010, a similar challenge by Smeltz on Neil Young left the keeper with 5 breaks in and around his nose. In 2012, Birigitti suffered a fractured cheekbone in a collision with Jeremy Brockie. The club hopes this latest incident doesn't go unpunished.
Mark's come out and done his job right, and I think he's been hard done by with Smeltz's challenge, leaving his footing. So I think it is a bit hard, but hopefully the match review panel can have a look at it and maybe do something.
Kantarovski was also in trouble last night.
I think my challenge was a little bit over the top, but I think in the heat of the moment you sort of don't really think about that. You're all about playing and trying to do what's best for the team. I think that's where my head was at.
It was combative, slightly reckless as well. I won't hide behind that. I'm not here just to protect my players, I'm here to protect all players.
Besides Birigitti's injury, the second half had plenty of talking points. Smeltz almost rubbed salt into the Jets' wound. Brosk could have had a double. But ultimately, the Jets believe they should have been in front in the first half. Meanwhile, Labino Haliti is awaiting results of a scan on his knee after leaving the pitch early.
I'm wanting to give the QS a good nudge. It's just hard because I've got a business at home, and to put the business aside to do it, and money-wise it's a bit hard, but we'll see what happens. A few points from this won't go astray, that's for sure.
A small group of wheelchair athletes lined up for the 4th annual Fernley 15, with Paralympic silver medalist Christy Dawes the early favourite. Behind them, more than 800 runners prepared for the 15k race. With defending champion Aaron Royal missing the event, the title was up for grabs. By the time runners hit Redhead, Vlad Shatrov was in front, followed by Dave Bradney. Further ahead, Dawes was so quick she beat our camera to Belmont, finishing in just under 39 minutes.
It was a little bit windy, but really good prep for New York. It was just nice to have a nice hard hit out on a Sunday in Newey.
In the men's division, Shatrov took the honours in 49 minutes.
The last 2 months has been all about getting ready to try and run an Australian qualifier for the Olympics. So it's 2:17 in a marathon. I'm about a minute and a half off that now, so I'm going to Tokyo in 18 weeks to have another crack.
Angela Ledbetter was first across the line in the women's race.
A warm, caring and quiet little boy who loved playing with his big sister. That's how Bernice Swales describes her son Jordan Thompson, who died at just 21 months of age. 10 painful years later, she's still searching for answers.
He deserved to have his life. He's missed out on his whole life. I wonder what he would look like now and what he sound like.
Ms Swales went to run some errands in Singleton on the afternoon of March 19, 2005, leaving Jordan in the care of her then partner. When she returned home, the toddler was in the lounge room, unresponsive. She rushed Jordan across the road to Singleton Base Hospital, but sadly he couldn't be revived.
Police at the time were told that Jordan had been found face down in a bathtub within the home. However, a post-mortem examination later revealed a lethal dose of prescription medication in his system.
A coronial inquest began in 2008 and will recommence in early December. Police continue to treat the case as suspicious. They hope a $100,000 reward will help them finally get a conviction.
Somebody knows something. People talk to people. What we're appealing for is those persons who have information to put aside misplaced loyalties, come forward with that bit of information.
Please do so, for my son's sake.
Jordan's stepfather was charged in 2009 with manslaughter, but back then the DPP asked for the charge to be dismissed, much to the disappointment of investigating police at the time. He has always denied involvement in Jordan's death.
We obviously didn't have enough evidence to prosecute a person then. We've always believed that we knew what occurred that day. However, we need somebody to come forward with information that will allow us to prosecute.
There's not a day that goes by where I don't think about him, so I wish he was here.
Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
Look, it's so concerning, yet another fatality on Hunter Roads. This is not the first in the Whittingham area. Clearly, this is a black spot.
Peter Lovett now has a place he can call his own. And while here at Matthew Talbot Hostel it's only temporary, it's better than the alternative.
Not having to live in the car. And I find the people very nice, and it was so kind of them to give me a place to stay without being homeless. I don't know how to thank them enough.
68 years old, Mr. Lovett is retired and has no family support. His story isn't uncommon, and that's why St Vincent de Paul is hosting a forum on poverty this week.
We're trying to raise awareness of the level of poverty still prevalent in Australia and particularly in Newcastle, and encouraging discussion around solutions to that poverty.
At the moment, 14.6% of the population in New South Wales is living in poverty. That means they have no permanent residence and rely on others to help pay the bills.
It's certainly not getting any better. We're finding with the increased rental costs especially, and food and electricity, they're the main things that we find people struggle with.
The Push to the Margins Forum will be held at City Hall on Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. Vivian von Drainen, NBN News.
With a shed front and centre, the stage was appropriately set in Newcastle for the Australian Men's Sheds Association's National Conference. It's attracted 400 people, testament to the movement's phenomenal growth.
We've grown 300% since 2010. It's just escalated that quickly.
This is where it all began, and the Windale Sheds started something big. There are now 930 of them across Australia. John Avoid took the concept to Ireland, and 300 sheds have now sprung up there.
It's becoming an important part of the community infrastructure in Ireland in a very short space.
So what's the secret to the shed's success? They're a place to tinker and create, but so much more.
A lot of personal enjoyment of being active rather than sitting at home watching daytime television.
The motto of our association is men don't talk face to face, they talk shoulder to shoulder.
Health experts say the sheds provide men with something unique.
Sheds are really good for health. They're not clinics, and we shouldn't turn them into clinics. But the support, the social support, the friendship, the help that men give one another is really good for health.
The conference itself is an extension of that theme, men helping each other to better their sheds and communities. It wraps up tomorrow.
our marathons often come down to sprints, but at the end of 42 Ks is just horrendous. So, you know, top 5 might be all finishing within a few hundredths of a second. So, but I think I can be there. Age can be seen as a really negative thing, but I see it as a positive thing that I have such a good base of fitness and strength under me. The R word is not on my horizon yet.
Heading to Las Vegas, Matt Hall needed to finish first or second to have any chance of winning the world title, and also had to hope Paul Bonham faltered in the early stages. Having won 4 of 7 events in 2015, Bonham wouldn't be rattled. In contrast, Hall made a shaky start. Fortunately, the Aussie found his composure just in time. When both pilots made the final 4, Hall's dreams of a world title were over, but the Vegas trophy was still up for grabs. Hall set a new track record and Bonham simply couldn't catch him.
We flew our game plan exactly how we planned, apart from the one pylon hit in the first round. And congratulations to Paul, because he had a lot of pressure on him and he was able to do what he had to do to win the championship.
The former fighter pilot then fought back tears as our national anthem was played at an air race for the second time.
Councils across the state had been dreading the IPART report card.
But we're at the position now where we have to act, and that's what it's about.
Released today, it deemed Newcastle, Lake Macquarie, Maitland and Dungog do not meet the criteria to stand alone established by the state government late last year following an independent review.
Our strong preference at this point remains for councils to do what is right for the people of this state.
Cessnock, Muswellbrook, Port Stephens, Singleton and Upper Hunter have been given the green light to carry on. For the rest, IPART's options include amalgamations between Lake Macquarie and Newcastle and between Dungog and Maitland.
Those councils know that there is significant benefit that they can deliver to their communities by undertaking merger proposals.
The report has at least one Lake councillor fuming.
I would like them to show the residents of Newcastle and Lake Macquarie where they feel they're going to save the money by merging the two councils together.
Newcastle's Lord Mayor just as scathing.
It is again a very Macquarie Street, Sydney-centric report. There are options to put in for boundary adjustments and we will look at doing that as a council.
Wyong and Gosford councils were also deemed unfit. The government has given councils 30 days to respond. Michael Kane, NBN News.
4:30 a.m. Water rushes down Jubilee Road at Ellamore Vale. And this is what Nick DiMarino's front yard looked like.
What sounded like a storm, and my wife went to the window and looked out, and water gushing from the corner there.
His pool now a mud bath, but thankfully the water stopped just short of coming inside.
We were getting worried when it started rising, and then it sort of started to settle down, and then it came out again.
The burst from the high-pressure main was so powerful it lifted up the road, and fixing it created an even bigger mess. And a huge hole. 3 Hunter water crews worked through the day to repair it and return water to a dozen households.
Within 20 minutes we had a crew on scene. It took about an hour to actually completely stop the water.
Complicating matters even further, the line was right under a telegraph pole and gas main. This is one of the worst broken water mains Hunter Water has seen in at least 2 years, and it should know what actually caused it in the coming days.
Fortunately, these sort of breaks to trunk infrastructure are very rare.
Vivian von Drainen, NBN News.
Led by Brian Perdue, the Green Corridor Coalition has been fighting to save this bushland at Fletcher since 2003, with 2 previous attempts to rezone 505 Minmai Road. He says it's a rare green belt and an important habitat for wildlife.
It's the last bushland left at Western Newcastle, and we've got overdevelopment. This particular land was identified way back as to be left as an urban buffer.
Owned by Kingston Minmai Road Proprietary Limited, the 26 hectares could be rezoned by Newcastle Council to enable low-density residential development and conservation areas. Councillors will tonight receive a briefing on the related issues and public submissions before making a decision on November 24. Also on the agenda, another addition to Westfield Katara on top of the current cinema, retail and dining expansion. This proposal includes 1,600 square metres of retail space over 2 levels near David Jones. But another 151 car parking spaces will go, fuelling frustration among nearby residents.
Well, the thing is that it's never going to end. It just keeps going and going. We've already got problems through the streets now with parking issues. And another 150 car parks is just going to make it worse.
I like the fact that he can travel through time and space, and he takes anybody with him. He doesn't judge or anything.
This is the first time that the BBC have done a big Doctor Who festival outside of the UK, and we're very, very grateful that it's here.
He provided a morale boost at recovery on Sunday, and today Mark Berigidi was back for the Jets' first training session 3 days after Shane Smeltz left him with more than 30 stitches in his face and 3 missing teeth. Incredibly, the shot stopper wants to face the Victory on Friday.
He wants to play. He's a goalkeeper. They're a different breed, mate, to be honest with you. But that's his mentality. For him to come out and put his body on the line for the team in the game shows his mentality and his commitment to the cause.
The Jets have now accepted there'll be no action taken against Smeltz, but Nigel Bogard has called for better protection for all keepers.
When someone's put in harm, regardless if it's an accident or not, I think it needs to be looked at a lot more seriously.
Berigidi is considered a long shot to line up at Hunter Stadium, meaning Ben Kennedy is likely to start.
Everyone's got confidence in BK and he can do the job, so we're probably lucky compared to a lot of clubs. I believe we've got 2 number 1s here.
Bogard returns from suspension for round 3, hoping to help the Jets build on their effort against the Sky Blues.
There's a lot more positives than the negatives to take out from the game, and if we can rectify a few of those little key mistakes, and it'll go a long way to getting a result against Victory.
Down in Melbourne, the Victory copped a spray from coach Kevin Muscat. The defending champions suffered a scare this morning, with star midfielder Ben Kalfalar leaving training early due to a neck injury.
The Wildfires played in the Sydney comp during the mid-90s, but since their exclusion from the Shute Shield, relocating to Sydney was the only way Hunter players could gain exposure to the highest level. The Emerging Wildfires program aims to change that.
Keep the talent base in the Hunter region and still getting the same quality training and development to then have chances to go to the next level from home.
Yeah, for a lot of the boys, they're using that as a bit of a stepping stone. I think it is really good for those younger boys.
The Emerging Wildfires play 4 games against other development sides during the National Rugby Championship window. They had their first win on the weekend against Southern Sydney. The majority of players are under 25, with a sprinkling of veterans thrown in to aid the squad's development. Hamilton's Joe Ackersdyke is skipper.
It's good. I love the leadership role. I think I try to do it a little bit at the Hawks as well. So this year, talking about like new boys, it's a good challenge for me.
Further bridging the gap between amateur and professional rugby is the priority.
Look at alignments with some of the NRC teams or one of the NRC teams where again we've got that clear pathway from home to the next level.
The team plays Deadwood at number 2 Sports Ground at 3 p.m. on Saturday. Paddy Kilmurray, NBN News. It's a new Lower Hunter town starting to take shape. When it's finished, Huntley Estate near Branxton will have 4 neighbourhood villages with 7,500 homes.
Creating a really lovely place where people can live, work and play.
Co-owner LWP Property Group is now asking those who bought property in the estate what they want to see in their town in the future. The plan outlines the 4 pillars on which Huntley will be built to create happy, healthy, vibrant and inclusive community.
Providing the best in contemporary living, opportunities for people to live active and healthy lifestyles, providing local employment and career opportunities, and also enhancing the natural environment.
And Huntley's first residents are about to arrive.
In November, we're actually going to have our first residents move into Huntley, so that's a really exciting chapter in the development.
And while one town emerges, others close to Huntley are looking to reinvent themselves. After enduring the mining downturn and a bypass, Branxton and Greta are fighting back. Last weekend, its Chamber of Commerce did its bit to unite its community by the way of a festival.
Our strength is that sense of community, and I think this highlights it essentially. People can see that we're alive and we're kicking.
Michael Kane, NBN News. One day after the Regulatory Tribunal deemed Maitland and Dungog councils unfit to stand alone, talk of a merger isn't sitting well.
I think it could be a difficult marriage.
The character of Dungog is very different to the character of Maitland.
Councils that volunteer to amalgamate before a November 19 deadline will receive a $5 million funding boost. Strategists say forced mergers are not the way to go.
It's a one-size-fits-all approach that's being adopted here, but in terms of democracy, it's going completely the wrong way.
The release of yesterday's IPART report hasn't gone down well with too many councils across the state, including Dungog. Now, the Mayor says while other councils had plenty of time to submit their cases, Dungog, on the other hand, were preoccupied cleaning up from a flood that devastated a town.
We've had 6 months out of our program, yet the government says no time extensions, just get on with it. You're standing 100 yards away from where a person died, where there are 18 people out of their houses. That's the kind of things that small communities worry about.
The state government has given councils 30 days to respond.
What we want to see is proposals that put ratepayers first.
Maitland councillor Philip Penfold says the time frame is nonsense.
Look, the clock's ticking. The government are making their assessment at the same time as they're asking councils to make a final submission.
Michael Kane, NBN News.
Once a sheet metal worker at Four Jacks, Jeremy Knight is now a full-time stay-at-home dad to 1-year-old Rose.
Took a redundancy in July, and since then I've been out of work.
AMWU New South Wales Secretary Tim Ayres says there are similar stories right across the Hunter as the manufacturing sector adjusts to the contraction of mining and decreased government investment.
Over the last 2 or 3 years, though, we've seen unemployment spike in the Hunter, now approaching double figures.
I know guys have been looking for it for the last 6 months.
The union says Hunter Manufacturing should be getting government contracts.
It's really an Australian asset, the workers and the firms and the capability that we've got right here. But it is testing times. The industry is on a precipice.
Mr Ayres believes the region is likely to see more job losses in the future as local businesses weigh up their options.
There are businesses that the union's engaging with today who are contemplating their future, who are winding back to almost mothballing their facilities.
But the industry did find some things to celebrate at last week's Hunter Manufacturing Awards, where Chairman Bob Cowan encouraged stakeholders to celebrate ingenuity in troubling times.
Each year I think, oh God, another year. I wonder what's going to happen this year.
Georgina Smythe, NBN News.
Billions of tiny bubbles per second. This is the Jamison cell and the man behind it. The idea, recovering small particles that would normally be lost when valuable commodities are pulverised.
If you put small bubbles into the system, the small bubbles attach only to the valuable bits, the ones that are water repellent. And then the bubbles float to the top, they make a froth, you scrape off the froth and there you've got your product.
Professor Graham Jamison worked on his invention for 20 years before it was perfected in 1980. It's now in 300 different mines across 24 countries on a much larger scale. And it saves 95 to 98% of fine particles between 0.05 and 0.12 millimetres in diameter. Tonight, his work is being recognised in a big way. He's being awarded the Prime Minister's Prize for Innovation.
It's wonderful to think that a device that's done so well for the country has come out of Newcastle University. And it's just indicative of the strength that we have here. We've got great strength, especially in engineering.
But Professor Jamison's work is far from over. He's now in the process of creating a system called fluidised bed flotation that will draw out bigger particles.
If we can do that, we'd save an awful lot of energy, then greenhouse gases and all that stuff. So it'll be a big advantage for the environment and for the economy.
Vivian von Drainen, NBN News.
It's one of the nice things about this university that it offers a broad spectrum of activities for the whole person, not just the academic.
It was game over initially. Now it's official. Labino Halidi won't return until the pre-season.
An enormous blow. Not only is he a great person, he adds that extra quality to us as well. So the process of identifying a player to come into the squad is ongoing.
The depth of Scott Miller's squad will be put to the test. With forward Andy Brennan still unavailable, either Mitch Cooper or Radovan Pavicevic could feature on Friday. Defender Lee Kee-Ji is back running, but won't play a role against the Victory. 20-year-old Lachlan Jackson is expected to be given a chance at left back.
I wanted to see what Lachlan Jackson was like in that position, seeing he's matured, because he played against Bentley Greens on the left side of central defence, and I thought at the time he played quite reckless in that regard, and we've really educated him since then, and he's taken massive steps in his terms of his maturity.
Mark Birighitti is desperate to play, but the matter has been taken out of his hands. Ben Kennedy will wear the gloves.
Very disappointed, to the point where he was contacting me profusely, and that shows a commitment that he shows, but the right decision has been made in my opinion.
Miller initially called the incident outrageous and wanted it reviewed. He's since changed his tune.
I'm pretty firm on that. I think we have to be clear that if the referee sees it or if he doesn't, I think we have to move on from that situation then and there. Otherwise it becomes a contentious issue that spends more time in the media than actually the efforts of the players out on the field.
Paddy Kilmurray, NBN News.
Jason Doyle has turned plenty of heads on the Grand Prix series this season. Following a hectic schedule riding in Britain, Denmark and Poland, Sam Masters has earned a wildcard to join him for the final round down under. Helping Edinburgh to the Premier League title just last week was a great warm-up.
I've been enjoying my racing a lot towards the end of the season, and I found form right at the end, which was good as well, and hopefully carried on for the weekend and we have a good time.
Masters hopes to one day compete on the GP series full-time. This weekend, he's got nothing to lose.
All the other 15 riders have been in the GPs all season, so they know what it's all about. I don't, and I've got to go out there and race as hard as I can.
Fresh from his debut in the main game at Bathurst, Aaron Russell has scored a drive in the Ute Series on the Gold Coast.
I'm really not sure what to expect, to be honest. I'm just going in there with an open mind.
Aaron had expressed interest in taking the place of Chaz Mostert in the Supercar Series following his horror crash at Mount Panorama, but that honour went to Russell Ingall.
I fully understand their point of view. You know, they want someone with a bit of experience with Cam to try and steer him along, and it was a bit disappointing. I think we could have been a good combination together, but it just wasn't meant to be.
The future is now. The day Doc and Marty McFly arrived in a time machine from 1985 in part 2 of the much-loved trilogy. 3 decades later, it inspired plenty of spoofs on what's been dubbed Back to the Future Day. Victorian police arrested Marty McFly in Melbourne for disturbing the space-time continuum, while their colleagues in Queensland showed off their new hoverboard-bound investigation unit. Even the New South Wales Premier Mike Baird got in on the act, arriving at work in a now classic DeLorean. Newcastle Back to the Future buff Brett Sutherland says it's all about the car.
Yeah, I love the movie, love the car, it all sort of fits together.
His DeLorean is just one of 30 in Australia, and it's ahead of its time after some modifications.
We bought it to actually convert it to electric, so we picked this car because it's actually a pretty timeless shape, and we put an electric drive system in it, which is pretty futuristic as well.
It's still not advanced enough to time travel, but it does inspire the odd line from the movie.
Great Scott! If my calculations are correct, it's now precisely October 21st, 2015. The future has finally arrived.
As for what Back to the Future got right and wrong, unfortunately we don't have flying cars, automatically adjusting clothes or dogs walked by drones. Film-inspired boffins have been working hard at making hoverboards, and while Tony Abbott resigned by one, no one gets fired by fax. Georgina Smythe, NBN News.
Desperate for answers, residents affected by the chemical contamination today called a roadside meeting. The investigation into the spill of potentially dangerous firefighting chemicals continues, but that's doing little to put minds at ease.
That's the water that's in the bores. That's the colour of the water. It's just pure disgusting.
Since being notified of the contamination, some residents have had their properties revalued.
Yeah, my land value is worth nothing now. Anxiety levels are high.
Member for Patterson, Bob Baldwin, put the residents' plight to the Prime Minister on Tuesday. Today he aired their concerns in federal Parliament.
More work needs to be done, better coordination, but importantly, relieving the stress on those that have lost their income must be a matter of priority for this government because it's not those people's fault.
Connie Grant has lived in Saltash since 2012. She now won't let anyone near her pool or vegetable garden.
We're trying to follow all the precautions that they're saying, so we're not eating our chook eggs now, we're not eating our veggies. But in the past, the kids have, and they've played in the water.
The Department of Defence and the EPA today declined to comment. Michael Kane, NBN News.
Back in the town where they came so close to a terrible fate.
I'm a little bit nervous. I do wake up through the night and I'm back in the water.
Colleen and Paul O'Brien, who travel the country in their caravan, were at the Stroud Showground when the deluge hit. They made national headlines, rescued by a local police and ambulance officer after being swept up in the raging torrent. This image of the pair clinging to a nearby toilet block, a reminder of that dreadful day.
The strength of the water was unbelievable.
6 months on, the couple has returned.
But we honestly thought...
we like coming back.
Yeah, this is probably our home base.
And for the first time, they've spoken publicly about their ordeal.
The velocity of the water just took my feet out from underneath, and I just said to Paul, I can't do this. So he just grabbed me by the arm and dragged me into the water.
Colleen and Paul tried to drive to safety, but the rising water made it impossible. They then decided to swim for it. With Paul perched on the roof and Colleen dangling by just her jumper, the pair hung on for over 3 hours until finally a rescue boat arrived. Colleen has since put her story on paper as part of the healing process. After 50 years of marriage, the trauma has brought them even closer together and made them more determined to enjoy every day.
We're much closer, and having been faced with that, I think Paul's appreciates me a little bit more these days.
Amanda Douglas, NBN News.
At Tocal, it's all about learning practical skills, and this side of farming is also fun. This week, the college has been hosting 21 high school students from throughout northern New South Wales as part of their traineeships in agriculture. It's a new program, and the college's incoming principal says an example of things to come.
There'll be a greater emphasis on digital learning and incorporation of technology. We'll also extend our reach into partnerships with schools.
He's also flagged greater industry connections while continuing to focus on Tocal's core business of training young people and adults.
But certainly there's room for growth and reach across the state. So Tocal is well known for their presence in the Hunter, but what's less well known is that we have programs running right across the state from the Riverina right to the North Coast.
This particular program is a first for New South Wales, and students have endorsed the experience.
I really enjoyed the chemicals part of it because I'm an academic student like that, but I definitely love the motorcycle part of it.
With the bonds mothers make with their children, and reading is one of the strongest ones. To bond with their child through a book, through a story, there's that closeness.
Mark Birighitti wanted to play tomorrow night. He pestered coach Scott Miller to pass him fit. Instead, the gloves have gone to Ben Kennedy.
Not the best way to come into the team, but I'm happy to be playing and hopefully take my chance.
Birighitti has made way for Kennedy in the past. 2 seasons ago, the 24-year-old was benched in favour of the homegrown gloveman. Competition for the spot is clearly alive and well.
Obviously, that's the plan. It's always the plan. Everyone wants to play every game, and I'm no different. So hopefully, can put in a good performance and keep my spot for the following week.
Everyone's got confidence in BK, and he can do the job. So we're probably lucky compared to a lot of clubs. I believe we've got 2 number 1s here.
Mouthguards have been fitted despite concerns they could affect the keeper's ability to communicate.
The dentist has said they're quite different to the old big bulky ones. So like I said, we got fitted out, and we're just going to see how it goes in training and go from there.
The Jets are unbeaten in their last 7 home matches against the Victory. Kevin Muscat's side is at full strength, despite concerns Ben Kalfala may miss the match with a neck injury.
He felt a little bit sore and stiff. Took him a little bit of time to come to grips with it, to understand it, but he's been fine. He trained yesterday, he'll train this morning. He's more than okay.
James Nitty's battled the breeze in Fiji, but eventually let mental demons blow him out of contention.
Coming back after Fiji, I mean, we pretty much borderline unplayable tournament for the first 2 rounds. We had 50 somewhat K wins, and you're trying so hard to get a good result over there, and I sort of crashed the last round. I didn't play really well, mentally tired and frustrated, and hit some bad shots.
His career is at a crossroads. The former PGA Tour pro fell off America's second-tier Web.com tour last year. He wants to regain his card. So far has completed the first of 3 stages of qualifying school.
It's at my home course that I practice at in Dallas, where I live in America. So I feel like I got a bit of advantage.
Playing local pro-ams is a far cry from the big money tournaments Nitty has contested stateside, but they're necessary. The second stage of Q School begins next month.
It's the outcome Bulga residents had been dreading.
I was extremely disappointed, and that was the initial reaction. And then when I read the actual report, I was bloody angry.
Yesterday, the Planning Assessment Commission threw its support behind the Mount Thorley-Warkworth mine expansion subject to conditions, stating the project's benefits as currently understood outweigh its potential impacts. It's outraged the mine's opponents, who claim the PAC's report is shallow and ignores vital evidence from their own experts on the projected impacts. For Melanie Cabin, a fourth-generation Bulga farmer, the news is devastating.
We suffer impact now from noise and dust, blasting, vibration.
In August, the state government changed its mining policy so that equal weight is given to a proposal's economic, social and environmental impacts during the assessment process. Campaigners at Bulga had hoped that would tip the PAC's decision in their favour.
This beautiful place, no one cares. They don't care.
If given final approval, the expansion would extend the life of the mine by 21 years, allowing another 358 million tonnes of coal to be mined. Rio Tinto says this latest development provides a great sense of hope for the 1,300 people who work at the mine.
The florist, the butcher, the subway stall. Without a healthy, vibrant and broad economy, those businesses suffer.
Despite already having fought and won 2 court battles against Rio Tinto, Bulga residents refuse to give up.
We're not doing this because we enjoy the process. We're doing it because we want to stay here. And yes, we'll do it again.
Amanda Douglas, NBN News.
As the Human Health Risk Assessment by the EPA proceeds.
We expect it to be in groundwater around the base for some time.
The EPA today confirmed there's no end in sight for residents and businesses in limbo due to the chemical spill when it comes to results.
They are going to need to be in for the long haul with this. We understand that there's potential for impacts not only on residents but on those who run commercial businesses in the area, and particularly those with fisheries.
The government needs to step up to the plate. Whether it's the commercial fishermen, whether it's those that have produced chickens, eggs, beef, all of those who have been stopped earning their income by this contaminant.
Those words in federal parliament backed up at a state level.
The immediate need is for this compensation to be provided to those that are losing income and have been losing it for 8 weeks now.
The EPA today met with the Williamtown Community Reference Group to reiterate that the current precautionary advice for residents remains in place.
Strongly encourage people not to use bore water if they're within the investigation area.
The Mayor of Port Stephens has 2 properties in the contaminated area.
You've got a couple of properties in this red zone. Are you using the bores?
All my cattle use the bore water, yes.
Even though you're told not to?
Well, what are they going to drink?
Michael Kane, NBN News.
It's a wonderful community. They love to get involved and help each other out, and I think this is a bit of a celebration. So we've made it through that, and now here we are, and we get to, let our hair down and celebrate.
When you get to a certain level, you can really start to be risky and creative.
After 9 stressful months competing in the world's fastest motorsport, Matt Hall is finally at ease.
Are you exhausted?
I am tired. It's been a long year. It's been a huge amount of travel, and it's not over yet. I'm off to Austria on Monday, so it's constant travel. But the pressure is at least gone at the moment. So I'm looking forward to enjoying this environment here.
Hall won the final race of the series in Vegas. He had to.
It was a high pressure race. I knew what I had to do to win the World Championship, and I actually did everything I could and won the race. So that was probably up around one of the most proudest moments I've had as a pilot.
It still wasn't enough to claim the overall championship. Looking back, a conservative approach early in the year and a missed opportunity in Budapest cost Hall valuable points.
All indications were it was going to go much better than that, but that's racing, that's sport. Sometimes, you just get a gust of wind here and there that you can't control.
He's now the #1 ranked pilot in the world, following the retirement of Paul Bonham.
I've enjoyed competing against Paul, and he's definitely brought the best out of me. I've really had to push myself and do some deep soul searching to get up and front up to those challenging situations. There's going to be other pilots that take his position straight away.
The air race is growing. Hall expects 2 more rounds will be included in next year's series, but where they'll be held is still up in the air. Organisers are currently negotiating with 25 cities around the globe. Hall wants to race closer to home.
This city of Lake Macquarie is obviously very keen to have it there, and the Red Bull Air Race is very keen to also have it here. So fingers crossed all parties can agree on the terms, and then I can have a home race.
What's your gut feeling?
Gut feeling is about 50-50 at the moment.
they're going to be very physical, they'll be very quick. I wouldn't be surprised if they played quite a barbarian style type of rugby where they throw it around. To see what rugby is like outside of Newcastle and what the standard is like, and probably the realisation that we're not all that far off it, and that the Newcastle Hunter comp is a very, very good standard and is improving year after year.